Make us a king to judge us like all the nations. Man, that single ancient demand literally changed the course of human history. You ever wanted to fit in so badly, or wanted a sense of security so much that you'd actually gladly trade away your own freedom just to get it? Well, today we are looking at a really profound moment in the historical text where the elders of Israel made exactly that choice. Welcome to The Explainer. I'm incredibly thrilled you're here to learn with me today as we unpack the cost of a king and Israel's rejection of God. We're going to be exploring a huge paradigm shift in human governance. It's just a fascinating look at the centralization of power, that totally human desire for conformity, and of course, the incredibly heavy price tag that always comes with a human monarchy. A crisis of leadership and the broken system. Every radical political shift usually starts with a vacuum, right? Here, the prophet Samuel is growing old, and he decides to delegate his authority. He makes his sons, Joel and Abiah, judges in Beersheba. But, as is so often the case with inherited power, things don't exactly go according to plan. You see, Samuel's sons suffered from three pretty fatal flaws. First, they turned aside after lucre, which is just an old way of saying they were chasing money and personal gain. Second, they took bribes. And third, they completely perverted judgment. Basically, they were entirely corrupt. And this broken justice system, that's the catalyst. It's the absolute crisis that drives the elders of Israel to total desperation, leading them to demand a massive overhaul of how they're governed. Like all the nations, and the real rejection. So the elders of Israel gather themselves together and actually travel out to Ramah to confront Samuel. They point out his age, they point out his son's blatant corruption, and then they lay down this ultimate demand. They want a king. But here's the thing, their underlying motivation isn't strictly about restoring a fair legal system. It's really about assimilation. They just want to fit in and be like the surrounding nations. Now, there's a super stark contrast here between the earthly demand and the divine perspective. The people are demanding a human king to judge them and, really importantly, to go out before them and fight their battles. They want a tangible figurehead. But God tells a deeply displeased Samuel, "They have not rejected thee, but they have rejected me, that I should not reign over them." It's such a crucial theological twist. God points out that this is really just a continuation of a pattern of forsaking him and serving other gods, a pattern that started the literal day he brought them out of Egypt. They aren't just changing up a political structure here, they're actively rejecting divine rule. Which brings us to the king's heavy price and Samuel's solemn warning. In response to all this, God tells Samuel to hearken to their voice. To listen to them and give them what they want, but with one major condition. He must protest solemnly and outline exactly what this king is going to cost them. So Samuel begins his solemn warning to the people using this really rhythmic, escalating phrase, "He will take." First off, he will take your sons. The new king is going to draft them to be his horsemen to run before his chariots. He'll appoint them as captains over thousands and fifties. But wait, it's not just a military draft. We're talking about forced labor here. Your sons will be set to plow his ground, reap his harvest, and physically manufacture his weapons of war. And the draft doesn't stop there either. He will take your daughters. The compounding costs here are going to completely upend private domestic life. Your daughters are going to be pulled right out of your homes to serve the royal household as confectionaries, cooks, and bakers. The state's needs will instantly and permanently supersede the family's needs. Next up, we encounter what's basically the ancient equivalent of eminent domain. Step 1, the king is going to legally confiscate your absolute best private property. We're talking your prime fields, your vineyards, your olive yards. And step 2, he's going to turn around and give them to his servants. He'll literally seize your generational wealth just to reward his own political loyalists and consolidate his power. Now, a really crucial point to grasp is the sheer economic burden of this new government. 10%. The king is going to take a flat tenth of your seed and of your vineyards. And later in his speech, Samuel notes he'll also take a tenth of your sheep. This 10% tax is specifically levied to give to his officers and his servants. The massive royal bureaucracy has to be funded somehow, right? And the citizens are the ones footing the bill. And all of this culminates in the total loss of personal liberty. He will take your menservants, your maidservants, your finest young men, and your livestock, and just put them all to his own work. The summary of this massive transfer of wealth and labor is honestly pretty chilling. Ye shall be his servants. These previously free citizens of Israel, they'll effectively be reduced to subjects of the crown. Which leads us to this absolute gut punch of an ultimate consequence. And ye shall cry out in that day because of your king which you shall have chosen you, and the Lord will not hear you in that day. Think about that. When the heavy reality of centralized power truly sets in, when the taxes and the forced labor drafts become completely unbearable, their cries for relief are going to go entirely unanswered. They are making a permanent choice. The final verdict, and a stubborn choice. So how do the people actually react to this grim, escalating bill of goods? Do they pause? Do they maybe reconsider their demand after hearing all that? Let's take a look. Well, despite the severe, incredibly explicit warning from Samuel about lost property, lost wealth, and lost freedom, the people stubbornly refuse to obey his voice. Their response is blunt and totally unyielding. Nay, but we will have a king over us. It is a conscious, eyes-wide-open decision to accept the heavy, heavy burdens of a monarchy. Let's break down exactly what they willingly traded their freedom for. Number 1, to be like all the nations. They completely prized conformity. Number 2, to have a king to judge them. They wanted that visible, centralized legal authority. And number 3, to have a king to go out before them and fight their battles. They were literally willing to sacrifice their sons, their daughters, their land, and their wealth, all for the promise of physical security and a human leader. So Samuel hears all these words from the people, and he rehearses them directly in the ears of the Lord. And God's final verdict to Samuel absolutely seals their fate. Hearken unto their voice and make them a king. The request is officially granted. Samuel sends every man back to a city, knowing full well that the decentralized era of judges is completely over and the incredibly costly era of human kings has officially begun. As we wrap up this explainer today, I want to leave you with a question to really chew on. Is the price of conformity worth the cost of freedom? The elders of Israel made their choice thousands of years ago, trading their liberty for security and that deep-seated desire to just fit in with the rest of the world. But it's a timeless trade-off, isn't it? We constantly have to weigh our own desire for security against the harsh realities of centralized power. Thank you so much for joining me today. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.